Ladies and gentlemen, the Season 4 update has finally arrived, including all the buffs and nerfs for this season, which means it's time for our top 5 guns in Season 4 of COD Mobile. If this is helpful, do me a favor, drop a like down below. If you think you're going to watch more COD Mobile videos in the future, drop a sub as well, and we'll hop in the action. Starting with our honorable mentions, we have a gun that, for the first time in a long time, is not going to be in the top 5 anymore. The COD 6 has received yet another nerf in that its ADS speed on the firm grip tape was significantly reduced, and in the past, it was definitely one of the must-have attachments on the gun. This coupled with the fact that the base COD 6 has terrible iron sights, which is automatically going to use up one of your attachment slots, meaning that the only way that the COD 6 becomes a viable top 5 gun is if you have the Mythic COD, so to me it just doesn't make sense to include this as a top 5 gun in the game anymore. Don't get me wrong, it's still a very solid SMG AR hybrid, but overall there are guns with much stronger purposes and much stronger prime ranges that just kind of make it obsolete. If you're looking for a great respawn class, this is definitely a solid free-to-play option for the COD 6. Getting an extra 50% bullet speed with no downside on the extended barrel is a big W, and the aim assist laser makes it a lot more consistent in the long range. But if you're more of an S&D guy and you don't want to give away your location in those tight scenarios, running the Field Agent foregrip turns this thing into an absolute laser from any range. Our second honorable mention is a gun that I think is still incredibly underrated, and even though it doesn't have a huge magazine capacity, if you're accurate, can be the fastest killing gun in the game in the HVK. You guys have likely seen that I've used this a good bit in my Road to Legendary videos on Garena servers, and especially when it comes to the Search and Destroy, this is one of the best guns in the game, at least when it's in the hands of a good player. If you're looking for an easier to use gun, I would recommend another one of our honorable mentions in the PP19 Bison. But once again, looking back on the specialties of the HVK, it has crazy headshot damage, which means if you land 2 headshots within the first couple damage ranges, you can actually 2-tap, and even without landing headshots, you can still manage to 3-tap in the right damage range. As always, you gotta use the large caliber ammo on the HVK. That is what really puts it over the top. And I've actually started to lean a little bit more away from the OWC tac laser just because I've been playing more Search and Destroy recently, but especially as far as respawn classes go, this is the one I would recommend. As previously mentioned, the Bison is an honorable mention for this season. I know that it's always going to be one of the guns that is most commonly used in rank, but that is primarily just because of the ease of use, and I do want to try as much as possible to keep our top 5 guns as the actual 5 best guns in the game, rather than just being the 5 easiest to use guns in the game. With that being said, the Bison does have potential to 3-tap up close, which means you can receive a pretty solid time to kill with it, but it's not going to be a very consistent 3-tap, and across longer damage ranges, it does lag behind a lot of the other options. As most of you guys already know, the reason it is ranked so high is because number 1, it has a massive base magazine with 64 bullets for an SMG, 2, it has great mobility, as I mentioned, it's an SMG, and number 3, it has almost 0 recoil, so anybody at any skill level can use it. Because the only real statistical downside of the Bison is the fact that its bullet spread accuracy isn't amazing. I've actually started running the skeleton stock because it still gives you a good bit of the mobility that you would normally get from the no stock without having to sacrifice quite as much on the accuracy end of things. Our final honorable mention is going to go to the newest gun in the game, the OTS-9 SMG. I know what you guys are thinking, Bobby, the OTS-9's not even in the game yet. How can you give it an honorable mention? Well, fortunately, we do have the stats for the gun and the ability to test it out in the firing range, so we have a pretty good idea of how it's going to perform. On paper, it looks like a pretty solid option, but there are a couple things that are going to hold it back. Stat-wise, it is almost identical to the Switchblade in just about every area possible, and does manage to edge out the Switchblade in one of the movement speed categories, and it does fire 1 millisecond faster, which in a couple tiny scenarios might be able to give you an edge, but because it has a tiny base magazine, it does force you to use the largest extended mag, which has a couple noticeable downsides. And on top of that, between the 3 SMGs that it's comparable to in the QQ9 and the Switchblade alongside the OTS-9, it's the only one of those 3 that has an actual bullet speed statistic, which is additionally going to slow down your time to kill even if it's just slightly. With that being said, I am excited for the OTS-9. I'm going to be grinding the leaderboards for it this upcoming season. Although for the first time ever, COD Mobile has decided this is the one Battle Pass weapon that they're not going to give a skin to. So for the time being, it'll be only the base OTS-9, but obviously we're probably going to have to snag the legendary as well. Now heading into our top 5, we have a gun that actually was buffed so hard that it's in the top 5 for the first time in a long time. Some of you might be surprised to see this, but the Cordite has made its way back into the top 5 guns in COD Mobile. Now this is going to be largely in part due to some finagling at the later spots, but trust me, you guys are going to understand. The Cordite received huge buffs in the past season, including a buff to the second damage range, a 0.2 increase to the headshot multiplier, a 0.1 increase to the lower arm multiplier, and a damage range increase for the first damage range. As it was, the Cordite was already a solid option, but these buffs actually make it incredibly comparable now to the number #1 long-standing gun in the game, the CBR. It has an identical rate of fire, very similar damage profile, similar mobility, and an opportunity to increase the base magazine size all the way up to 80. It also has better bullet spread accuracy, which also means it's going to be better in the long range. Ultimately, the only thing holding the cordite back is its recoil pattern, in that it does kick pretty hard to the side and it does move back and forth, so it's not quite as easy to control. You do also need to make sure you're hitting at least 2 shots to either the upper body or the arms in order to ensure that 4-tap in the first damage phase, but overall, the cordite is a phenomenal option this season of COD Mobile. You guys definitely need to give it a try. One of the interesting things about the cordite is it actually has an attachment that most weapons don't have in the OWC foregrip that allows you to counter that horizontal recoil pretty easily. But with that being said, you got to be ready to sacrifice some big time mobility at the same time, so it's a big question of whether or not you want it to be viable at long range and suffer in the close range because of lack of mobility, or vice versa. If you want the beam loadout, this is definitely the one to go to, but if you want to build it out to be more like a true SMG to be able to counter those CBRs, I would recommend throwing on the light stock to give you some sprint to fire speed as well as some strafe speed, and because of better range attachments for the cordite as well, that gives you an opportunity to build it out to have more range to be able to challenge the CBRs. Coming in at the #4 spot for the 27th season in a row, it's the SKS. And alongside the SKS, we have the XPR, which fills pretty much the same purpose in that they are the 2 most dominant long-range weapons in the game that have very different play styles, but once again, very same purpose. The XPR is the ultimate mobility sniper that in the hands of the right player is completely unstoppable and has a crazy fast rate of fire, so if you want to, you can sit in the back of the map and spam it as well. The SKS has long been the most dominant long-range weapon in COD Mobile, and it's actually a miracle I don't see it in ranked more than I do. To have a designated marksman rifle that's able to 1-tap to the head anywhere on the map is absolutely ridiculous, and having the ability to 2-tap from anywhere on the map is pretty solid as well. The XPR on the flip side can be used a little bit more in a versatile way, as if you want to, you can make it a quick scoping type of sniper, but both of these weapons are banned from competitive play, and there's a reason for it. They're ridiculously good. With the exception of the tactical suppressor, we like to build out the XPR to be as aggressive as possible. Like I mentioned, the fastest quick scoping sniper in the game, and stopping power is going to be an absolute must-have, because without it, this gun's really not worth using. And here we've got a modified version of Lucas's ultra accurate SKS, definitely built a little bit more for the passive playstyle, but the light barrel does give us some versatility so that we can play a little bit more seamlessly in the close to mid-range as well. Coming in at the #3 spot, we've got a wombo combo that I haven't combined in the past before, but I think you guys are going to understand the reasoning behind it. Last season, I put the LK and the KN here because I felt like they were similar enough, but there's just something about the KN-44 that I feel like is missing that the LK seems to have at any given point. So because of that, I'm instead deciding to combine the Kilo and the LK-24. Here's my reasoning why. The Kilo is the go-to option if you want an ultra-consistent long-range assault rifle. The Kilo is a phenomenal option whether you have the Mythic or the base version. Obviously, the Mythic does help you out a whole lot, but both of these guns can also be built out with red dots and still be equally as consistent. The big upside for the Kilo is you're always going to 4-tap whenever you land your shots, regardless where you hit them on the body from close to mid-range. Even in the long range, it has really solid bullet spread accuracy, so you don't have to worry about big-time damage drop-off, which allows you to hold longer lanes. The LK, on the flip side, doesn't have quite the same rate of fire, but has much better body multipliers that allow you, in the hands of the right player, to actually be able to 3-tap and achieve crazy fast time to kills. Because of recent buffs to the LK, you don't even need to land headshots anymore. You can simply land shots to the upper body and the hands. But obviously, if you don't manage to do that, then your time to kill is going to drop off. So as far as ease of use goes, if you want something where you don't have to think a whole lot and just shoot anywhere on the body, the Kilo's the gun for you. But if you're feeling ultra accurate and you want that big time upside of landing upper body shots to get a faster time to kill, give the LK a try. You're not going to regret it. I'm a big time fan of the LK-24 Amethyst Serpent because it is by far the best iron sights of any LK in the game, and it was a battle pass one. One of the crazy things about the LK is even when you have a no stock on here, this has one of the best bullet spread accuracies in the game, so once again reinforcing the fact that it is an insanely dominant long range assault rifle. Also, having the ability to 3-tap all the way out at 40 meters, not a bad thing. For the Kilo, I was always surprised whenever I saw that Tectonic actually built it out with the Ranger foregrip, but the more I use it, the more I understand why, and this attachment is definitely a must-have in my opinion when it comes to building out a consistent Kilo, especially when you're building for the long range. And if you're looking for a nice red dot build, if you're a free-to-play player, just swap in the red dot for the barrel and you're good to go. Coming into the #2 spot, we have another dynamic duo that you guys will likely recognize from last season's top 5 guns. That's going to be the Switchblade and the QQ9. Obviously, both of these weapons got major buffs over the last season that now make them the most dominant close-range guns in the game. With incredibly similar ranges, damage numbers, rate of fire, mobility, these two guns are so similar in many ways, but they do each have their upsides. The QQ9, no question, the easier to use option of the two in that you're guaranteed a 4-tap anytime you are inside that first damage phase. The Switchblade requiring you to be a little bit more accurate and ensuring that you are landing those upper body shots in order to achieve a 4-tap in the close range does have the upside of having slightly better mobility, especially when it comes to strafe speed. Both of the weapons actually have fantastic iron sights, so whether you're a fan of the Switchblade or the QQ9, you don't really have to worry about buying a new skin to make your iron sights better. One thing I will say is I feel that the Mythic QQ9 is the best gun in the game right now. With a built-in iron sight and what feels to be absolutely zero aim shake, it just absolutely beams, and the time to kill up close is ridiculous. But obviously not everybody can afford a Mythic skin, so I don't want to put it inside the #1 spot just because of a skin that maybe 5% of the population actually owns. And one of the big downsides of both of these guns is they have terrible bullet spread accuracy, so you want to try to get as much as you possibly can. And to be honest, might be worth considering running a tactical suppressor rather than the monolithic to maintain some of that bullet spread accuracy. But because the base mobility is so good, I feel like the strike stock is a fantastic option whenever it comes to the QQ9. And for the Switchblade, our build is exactly the same as it has been for the past year now. And last but not least is the gun that every single one of you expected to be here for the 17,000th season in a row. It's the CBR. While it may not be the most dominant close range weapon or the most dominant long range weapon in the game, there's no question the CBR is the most versatile weapon across every single possible scenario. It has an up close time to kill that rivals that of the Switchblade and the QQ9, while at the same time maintaining easy to control recoil and having damage drop off that doesn't hurt you too terribly hard. On top of that, it's got a 50 round base magazine, which means you don't need to waste an attachment slot on an extended mag, and you also don't have any need for a red dot because its iron sights are so clean. With that being said, COD Mobile, please nerf the CBR. Thanks! I'm assuming by this point in the game, every single one of you has seen my CBR class, but in case you haven't, this is the one that we're rocking with. No, I don't use the monolithic suppressor because the one downside of the CBR is it doesn't have the best bullet spread accuracy, so it's not really worth it to give it up, especially when you only get 10% range upside. Thank you guys for watching. Hope you enjoyed. If you did, drop a like down below, subscribe if you haven't already, and we'll see you guys in the next one.